When I look at this article written by Paul Tassi just a few days ago, and I examine it from the recently dug up behavior, or I would say response, that PlayStation fans had back in 2020 when they heard that Horizon Zero Dawn was going to be coming to PC, I can almost safely say that we have almost something close to an Xbox tax going on here. The way he categorizes Microsoft's business strategy with Xbox, pretty much putting the entire, strategy and the Xbox brand into this category that, oh, the brand can't even be recognized anymore. And I told you all this yesterday when I made this video, and shout out to Wingmaker who asked me to respond to it. At first I was a little adamant, but I decided, you know what? Okay, no problem. I said in that video that the first paragraph was designed to inflame anybody, and you could flip-flop Microsoft and Xbox and PlayStation, and you would come out with almost a very similar, conclusion. I'll do it again. We'll go to a question asked by an audience member, and we'll see what might be going on in the gaming industry. Because this talk that exclusives sell consoles, it is one that is under question right now, especially with PlayStation and Xbox and PC being this other, proxy that both of them have now started deploying their games day and date. I'll read the beginning paragraph. Paul Tassi writes and says, as PlayStation players wait to play Xbox exclusive Indiana Jones 6 months or so from now, we're reminded of the strange situation the console brand finds itself in, where it is really not even a console brand at all anymore, at least not according to Microsoft. If I say as Xbox players, or if I say as PC players wait to play PlayStation exclusive, Lost Soul aside, do you see that? 6 or 12 months or so from now, or if I even change Lost Soul aside to Marvel Spider-Man 2, where we have a release date, we're reminded of the strange situation the console brand finds itself in, where it is really not even a console brand at all anymore, at least not according to PlayStation. The reason I go this route in this particular categorization is I was able to fortunately dig up a thread by a former Guerrilla dev at the time where it seemed like he was, in a sense, trying to, calm down the PlayStation fan base who was heavily disappointed when they heard about this. There is, in my opinion, a plethora of tweets like this expressing this sentiment where somebody said this to him. They said, a former Guerrilla dev, a former Guerrilla producer doesn't understand that the success built by his former company was done on the basis of outstanding exclusives, and that scrapping the exclusivity diminishes the brand value. So if Paul Tassi is equating Microsoft taking their games to PlayStation as one that diminishes the brand value, then we must, in a sense, or we are beholden to going with the PlayStation fans from a few years ago who saw it as the brand diminishing its value. Does that make sense? So if you think about it, the model of exclusivity for PlayStation and Xbox is outdated because this person that said this, they got dragged all over the place. While some agreed with them. In fact, there were some who said, well, now that I've seen this, I'm not going to buy the next console. I'm not going to buy the next PlayStation console. If you go ahead and, think about it. In fact, some people started agreeing with the model back then. Why now no one wants to agree with this model is funny to me. This person asked me a question in my, and they said to me, keeping exclusives on, console, isn't that what's going to go ahead and sell the console? I thought that was a very decent question. To be very honest, let me go ahead and see if I can find a comment here and if I can find a question, because I thought it was one that was really good. And yeah, there it is. Kevin TL1ZS. Shout out to you, sir. You said, but if PlayStation keeps their games on its console, people will have a reason to buy the console. No? Well, I don't know. You tell me, because just recently, what did we see with PlayStation console sales? We saw that PlayStation console sales were increased by a percentage while Xbox's console sales were, they went down. So what could be the problem? Is there a PlayStation 4 unique situation and PS3 unique situation, Xbox 360, Xbox One unique situation that we're missing out on? It's being reported right now. IGN has an article here where they're looking at, console sales. They're talking about the PS2 being, surpassing the Nintendo Switch, surpassing the PS2 to become the second best selling gaming hardware in U.S. history. They're talking about the more recent numbers. And so shout out to PlayStation for getting their numbers up. This is great. But is it based on exclusivity, or is it based on the fact that back in the generation, they actually, were able to push for people to build their libraries there, or people just want to buy a PlayStation over an Xbox? I strongly believe that that is the case. I strongly believe that people wanted to just buy a PlayStation over an Xbox because its brand is popular. It was popular from the PlayStation 4, and PlayStation still has a good number of its console base from the PS4 generation making their way to the PS5. Exclusivity doesn't seem to factor in. Why? Because the PlayStation fans back then, they realized that their games were no longer exclusive. This was just 4 years ago. Still the same PlayStation fans, I'm sure many of them are still playing on PlayStation. But somewhere, somehow, now that the brand is now doing day and date, they also are very aware that their brand is no longer built on exclusivity because their games are coming on PC. So the talk about exclusivity being the thing that sells consoles on the PlayStation and Xbox side is one that's very interesting to look into. In fact, I'm not even sure what the conclusion should be, because Nintendo is basically over there sitting pretty, enjoying itself, and being able to go ahead and, push a lot more console sales at the end of the day. So again, we need to look and see this console model of exclusivity is basically outdated. I strongly believe that it is outdated because the behavior of the gamers and the behavior of the consumers, in a sense, is saying otherwise. I can point to almost any PlayStation game and I can show you a PC port on Steam and Epic Games that's already available for everybody to play. And so all this talk about, if the exclusives are not there, it diminishes the brand, is one that's weird, because the software sales is what the brand has to pursue in order for it to be able to keep its brand sane. And like I just said, Lost Soul Aside just got announced for the PS5, right? Lost Soul Aside is basically a game right now that has been sponsored, that has been helped, pretty heavily by PlayStation. It was a one-man development game. I remember this game. Now I remember clearly. I went and read about it, and I remember clearly that the game was being developed by one person using Unreal Engine, and PlayStation hooked the person up, and I think they went ahead and pushed the project forward. It's coming next year. So Paul Tassi's article here, that's already pointing this situation, looking at the way PlayStation fans were reacting at the Horizon Zero Dawn place, this article will have to either be telling us exactly how we should view PlayStation's brand as well, or it's null and void. It's clickbait or an Xbox tax, weighing Xbox in a much different light and leaving PlayStation out of the equation. Or maybe Paul Tassi is not aware of this whole console war thing that was being, touted all over the place. But I'm certain he's aware, because I saw some articles from him about 10 years ago, pretty much encouraging both PlayStation and Xbox players to at least try out each other's, platform before they make a full judgment as to what the platform offers. Interesting stuff, isn't it? Interesting how all of this continues to point that perhaps there's a console war industrial complex that's here to farm views and farm clicks and farm attention from a lot of people out here. Now, I'm not saying that they're not genuine people talking about the industry and talking about, the situations in the industry. But don't you think that it's quite peculiar and uncanny that most of these individuals will foment something that, is being done on the other side to probably inflame one side in a sense, or maybe they're biased, or maybe they're fans of PlayStation and cannot see PlayStation as a brand that's devalued, but in some sense, they see only Xbox doing the exact same thing and sees that as being devalued, which is wild, isn't it? So the standard and the metrics basically has somehow, somewhere, somebody has tried, to switch out things. That's crazy at the end of the day. And what's funny is back then as well, there were PlayStation fans who didn't necessarily care that the exclusivity thing was a problem. They wanted the game to go to other platforms. They didn't believe that it devalued the brand because they bought PlayStation because that's where they wanted to play their games. And I've argued over and over and over again that a platform needs to be able to provide inherent value that is not attached to some kind of carrot on the stick, framework. This is why Steam sits there, they say Steam does nothing and gets all games, but that's not exactly true. Steam is actually very well poised from the developer and from the consumer perspective at the end of the day. So if PlayStation has a value proposition that is competitive enough, people will move to their platform. That's just the reality. The question now is, at the end of the day, does Xbox have something of a value proposition that its own audience can resonate with and move to its platform, or people can look at their platform and be attracted to? The answer, in my humble opinion, is yes, they have Xbox Game Pass. I saw a question from another audience member saying, okay, why would PC gamers even ever touch Game Pass when they're locked into Steam? This person said that they were a PC player, and to me that was quite shocking, because I was like, has this person ever met, many PC gamers? Many PC gamers are former console players, so they're not necessarily too tied in to the traditional model of it must be Steam library. Now, don't get me wrong, when the game goes exclusive to Epic, sometimes some PC players get, all right, when the game comes to Steam, we'll buy it, because that's different. But if it's an Xbox service, because Steam is not, Epic is not really providing for the gamer any inherent value like Steam is, but Xbox is. Xbox right now, I've said this before, Xbox is the Steam of all three console manufacturers, because Game Pass provides an inherent value for somebody who is financially savvy, who looks at games that they're interested in playing, hundreds of dollars of games, and said, I can play this for much less. When they run the numbers and run the equation, they can play those games for much less. And so at the end of the day, that is what's going to push and sell consoles. The talk about Xbox having abandoned their consoles is fugazi. All of this is starting to come to light, and to me, it shows what a joke the gaming conversation has truly been in the last few years. This is why I brought myself into this, because in watching, I've just been so fed up that people are just gaslighting one another rather than being honest about the situation at hand. Let me hear your thoughts in the comment section. I appreciate you guys' time and audience, and hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.